Information Network and BINnews.com.
Escape with the best stories of the year on Audible. Hear celebrity memoirs, mysteries, true crime, sci-fi, and more. Ignite your imagination with audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
Is this the tether?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Dodgers Executive Vice President Andrew Friedman said manager Dave Roberts will return next year for his 9th season. Roberts, one of only 2 black managers in Major League Baseball, is under contract through 2025. There was concern about Roberts' future. The Dodgers failed 2 years in a row to reach the National League Championship Series after winning 100 games in the regular season. The Dodgers are also 3-10 in their last 13 postseason games. 5 NFL teams starting a black quarterback have a combined 20-8 record. That's 71%. At the top of the list is Kansas City's Patrick Mahomes and Philadelphia's Jalen Hurts. Both are 5-1. Dallas is 4-2 with Dak Prescott. Seattle is 3-2 with Geno Smith. Cleveland is also 3-2 with Deshaun Watson and P.J. Walker. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your beer.
Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. 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 Follow the leader.
Some bottom so that the dancer just won't hide.
It is hard to deny the influence that Sly and the Family Stone have had on countless music artists over the decades. Sly Stone's memoir has finally been released, and the co-writer Ben Greenman joins us right now for the hour to talk about the book. And what else would you call a Sly Stone memoir? Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir. Sly Stone with Ben Greenman. Ben, good to have you on. How are you today, sir?
Good. How are you, Tavis?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am delighted to have you on. Delighted to have this hour to talk to you, and just delighted to play some good Sly Stone music all through this hour. So it's going to be a great conversation. It's been a great show today. 2 great hours, and it's going to only get better. And now that Ben Greenman joins us to discuss again the new memoir called Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir of Sly Stone. Let me start with this. This is radio, and people can't really see. Well, there's some who are watching, of course, right now. Let me hold this book up. Miles, can you see this? This cover photo of Sly. Let me start with that. I'm always amazed of all when I look at book covers, particularly books like this, where there obviously are millions of photos to choose from, that the company chooses this photo. What do you make of it, Ben?
We narrowed it down and he picked it. There were a bunch of different eras. My favorite photo, just personally, as a fan over the years, is just one where he's holding up a knife, shaving with a knife, deemed too menacing, not going to sell. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of glamour photos. Handsome guy, probably the handsomest. Fashionable guy, probably the most fashionable ever. And so we had a whole set. We have the ones with these gigantic white kind of fuzzy boots. We have the one of him looking in control in the studio. So they picked a set, sent them to Sly, and this was the one that he went for. This is a mid-'70s kind of look. It's I think with him, you have to make a choice, 60s or 70s is sort of where you lean. And the 70s, I think, has longer legs, no pun intended, in a way. The 60s can feel a little more dated, the vests and the 70s is when he created the fashion that everybody still is drafting off of.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I was going to come to it later, but since you're already there, I'm going to follow you as I will throughout the entire hour here, as is my way. Since you mentioned the fashion thing, we'll talk about the music, of course, but you can't talk about Sly without talking about the fashion. Tell me what readers are going to be exposed to when it comes to that part of the book about Sly and his fashion statements.
Well, the thing you just said when you said we're on the radio, so I'm going to hold up the book so no one can see it, is sort of the handicap of a book as well. There are photos, there's photo sections, but there's such a I would even change the word fashion a little bit to style. Fashion's part of it.
Sure.
But he had from the very beginning such an incredible self-possession, and the way that rock and roll worked generally is that it opened things up. There are all these closed doors. I mean, this is it's a drastic oversimplification, but whatever. The 50s closes all these doors. The 60s starts to open them, and he just kicks so many of them open. And some of them are in the way he expressed himself when he was a radio DJ. Some is in the kind of music that he created, and some is in how he looked. And the one of the great ways to think about this is Questlove, who's the publisher of this book through his imprint. Unrelatedly, we can talk about how they're related or not, but he did the Summer of Soul movie. And that movie has a great contrast between the Motown artists who in 69 are still going out in knit vests and suit jackets in 100-degree summer weather. And then Sly, who they say they're street clothes, they're really an exaggerated version of street clothes because they're high fashion. But he's playing the way more or less that people were dressing when they were walking around San Francisco. So just that alone just creates freedom. You don't have to be appealing to an audience in the same way. You're yourself, and you're appealing because of that.
Yeah. Let me do this. I'm watching this clock here. I know where I want to go here, given what you've just said. I know it's not going to be fair to let you start and have to cut you off. So when we come forward, Ben, I want to come to this. I have written a number of books, of course, in my own career. And my favorite book of the 24, 25 I've written was the book about Dr. King. It's a book called Death of a King. And the book focuses just on the last year of King's life when he gives this Beyond Vietnam speech on April 4, 1967 at the Riverside Church in Manhattan. And they killed King 1 year to the day, almost to the hour later, April 4, 1968. The first and only book that looks at just that last year of his life and what King was enduring, what he was going through, and how he navigated literally the last 365 days of his life. But I raise that only because I know something of what it means to write a book about your hero, somebody that you absolutely adored and loved. I never met Dr. King, of course. I'm born in 64. He's assassinated in 68, so never met him, certainly never interviewed him. But I've long regarded Dr. King as the greatest American this country's ever produced. That's my assessment. This audience knows that, the greatest American we've ever produced. And so I wanted, after all of my study, of years of study, to write this book about King, because I think that you have to see King in his last year to really know who he was. The point is, it's a tricky thing, writing a book about somebody you already sort of, I won't say idolize, but certainly have great regard and respect for. I know from knowing your backstory what a huge Sly Stone fan you were and are. And I want to ask, when we come forward, how that impacts approaching the subject matter. We're talking to Ben Greenman, the co-author of the book, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir. We're talking this hour on Tavis Smiley about Sly Stone.
Freedom-loving folk. This is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfection like zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection consistent with the CHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
I walk for my mom, who survived a heart attack.
I walk to inspire my kids.
I walk to save lives. So can you. Join the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, October 22nd. Register at heartwalkla.org.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
In the end, you'll still be you. One that's done all the things you set out to do. Stand, there's a cross for you to bear. Things to go through if you're going anywhere. So alive, stand. All the things you want are real. You have you to complete, and there is no deal.
So Ben Greenman, we're going to play a lot of slide music throughout this hour, but to my mind, nothing he's written has greater lyrical content than this. Take a listen. Love the lyrics.
You've been sitting much too long. There's a permanent crease in your right and wrong. Stand. There's a midget standing tall, and the giant beside him about to fall.
So Ben Greenman, as I mentioned, you are a longtime Sly fan. We'll talk about that as we move through this hour. And his body of work, his corpus is undeniable. The impact of that body of work, again, is hegemonic in some ways. But I love this track in part because, again, the lyrics are just so profound. What say you about the lyrics to this song, Stand?
Well, I want to use one of those lyrics to address the topic that you mentioned earlier. And so there's a line in there where he says, one that's done all the things you set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, this idea that your heroes, you mentioned what is the fairest, safest, sanest way to encounter your heroes as a writer and as a thinker? And I thought a lot about that. It's a great question. It's maybe one of the central questions.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says, and they're not wrong, don't meet your heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I had trepidation. On the other hand, I mean, this is a long time as an artist, a long time obsession of mine. As a man, I didn't know him at all. I was a kid in Miami in 1979, and I was 10 years old, and I bought Greatest Hits, and I wore that thing out on cassette. And every song was meaningful, and then when I went to get the records, I thought, oh, you mean there's album tracks also? It's not just these huge hits that are burned into my brain. There's experiments, and there's downbeat stuff, and there's introspective stuff that's not the same as this. Oh, my God, this is an entire life's work that I have to dig into. This process is different because, as you say, there's this tension, different from King because Sly is still alive. So you have a living man, and then you have a legacy and artwork that will outlive him.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you locate yourself in the middle of that? In my case, I had both excitement and trepidation. I had worked on George Clinton's memoir with him about 10, 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And toward the end of that process, I mentioned, Sly is a big figure in George's book. He was a huge inspiration to George. If George is the New Testament of funk, Sly is the Old Testament. And I mentioned, I'm sure more than once, how incredible it would be to work with Sly, to help him write his life story. And George hooked me up. And at that time, Sly was still using, and his life was engineered to that end,
mm-hmm.
which meant that it was not conducive to a book project in any way. I mean, he wanted to write a book. He was excited about it, but there was no infrastructure in his life at that point to do so. So we had a lot of exciting and ultimately disappointing back and forth.
Yeah.
Could this happen? It might happen. You're ready to tell the story. Let's talk a little. No, it just can't happen because that's not where he was in his life and in his journey. In 2019, Arlene Herskowitz, who was a former girlfriend of Sly and returned to his camp as his manager, got in touch with me. And she was putting things on more of a professional footing for him. Later that year, he got clean. And she, I should say right off the bat, she's credited on the book, created in collaboration with, because
mm-hmm.
it could not have happened without her. She's the one who kind of outlined the process for him. He had not obviously written a book before. He's used to songwriting. He's used to touring. And then for 40 years, he's used to using.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was able to keep him in the cylinder of the book, explain to him, we're going to do more sessions today. Ben's calling. We're going to talk about this. So, and George Clinton, of course, played a key role in helping me to earn Sly's trust, because all of the things I had heard heading in is that he was guarded. He was not always treated fairly by the press. He's a kind of loner anyway, though he created this fantastic band and community around him. But he's not part of the Motown scene, the Motown stable, or the Stax scene, or the Stax stable. He's kind of a third rail of that 60s music. So I can say that it's me doing it, but in a strange way, that great publisher, great staff, so many people had to be in the right place at the right time, and more importantly, to know that there might not be too many other right times for this to happen.
Yeah. Our guest is Ben Greenman. He is the co-author of the book, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir by Sly Stone, with a foreword by Questlove. Honored to have Ben Greenman as our guest in this hour, talking about the rich musical legacy of one Sly and the family Stone. He was born Sylvester Stewart in Denton, Texas in 1943, had brief careers as a doo-wop singer, a radio DJ, and a record producer before forming the band. The book moves from Sly's early career as a radio DJ and record producer through the dizzying nights of the San Francisco music scene in the late 60s, as Ben said earlier, and into the darker, denser life and music of the 70s and the 80s here in Los Angeles, set on stages and in mansions in the company of family and other celebrities. It's a story, this book is, about flawed humanity and flawless artistry. And I want to come right to that. Flawed humanity and flawless artistry. We'll take them one at a time. Since you already teed this up, Ben Greenman, talk to me about Sly's flawed humanity.
I think that they're the same things. They're two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. If I can grab them both at once,
sure.
Because you mentioned that in that capsule bio. One of the things about him that's so striking is that there's always this kind of it's not racist, but it's racially coded about, oh, these people were native self-taught talents and these people were educated and trained. Sly is a perfect example of how this doesn't work at all, this formulation. He's the most qualified rock star in history. Like you say, by the time he creates The Family Stone, he's already a child recording artist in gospel. The Stewart Four puts out a song. He's a doo-wop hit maker with Yellow Moon. He's a star DJ in San Francisco. He's a staff songwriter and producer, and he goes to college to learn composition. So by the time he gets to this point where he thinks, okay, I'm going to be a rock star now, not only did he put in the time and put in the work, but every single skill that you would need to do this new thing that was happening called being a rock star, he had training in already. Then so to me, that kind of opens the door to this other question. And it is a question, and I'm not sure I know the answer, to be honest with you, which is, when you've seen it all, you know where all the landmines are. He saw so many other stars a little older than him, musicians who played with him, fall into all of these pitfalls of stardom. He must have known, and we talk about this at various points in the book, he must have known, stay away from those things. You don't want to go, some of them are unavoidable. You don't want your plane to crash, obviously. Some of them are avoidable. You don't want to become an addict. And yet, that flawed humanity, and I think from the very beginning, all of these kind of tensions that he creates and resolves in the songs, musically, but also lyrically, tall and short. It's a Stand, it's also an Everyday People. That everybody is different, but also the same. And so, yeah, I think that's a great question that I can't fully answer. I can relate what he told me, but I don't really know in terms of why someone who's so smart, this is one of the smartest people. I don't know that there are limits to how smart he could be. Yeah. And yet there are decisions that were self-destructive. There were, choices around drugs. It may have been my theory, and this is not his theory, although some of the things he says do support this theory, is that fame was the first drug and everything else was an antidote, and that fame was the most destructive drug and everything else was a way of coming down or surviving fame. Yeah. He doesn't say that. That's my opinion. But there are clear signs as he got mega famous that the strain on him was just unbelievable.
Yeah. I want to come back to that notion of fame as his first drug. And whether or not that was a drug of choice or a drug of chance. We'll talk about that in a moment here. But I want to go quickly back to the church. I raise this for two reasons. Number one, I just had a conversation earlier in today's program where the names Charlie Wilson and El DeBarge came up. And here are two guys that I know and have known for years who came right out of the church. And yet both have struggled with their own kinds of addiction. Charlie Wilson got clean many years ago and has gone on to have as many solo hits as he had with the Gap Band, maybe even more. El DeBarge, still struggling. I pray for that brother all the time, know him, love him. And yet both Charlie and El have been able to maintain their voice. Their instrument is still there. Never mind all they've done to harm those instruments. But Sly's not the only one to come out of the church and to still have these struggles, still have these travails. I raise it secondly because a dear friend of mine who the nation knows as Dr. Cornel West grew up in Sacramento. And if you ever hear Dr. West lecture, he will drop the name of Sly Stone any number of times. And he does so because, one, he loves Sly Stone, but also because as a kid growing up in Shiloh Baptist Church, I've heard this story many times, Shiloh Baptist Church, Reverend Willie P. Cook, there was a guy named Sylvester Stewart who showed up on many Sundays to play the organ at Shiloh Baptist Church. So as a kid, Dr. West is watching Sly Stone, Sylvester Stewart at the time, play the organ in this church. It's a long way of getting to what you can tell us about the impact of the black church on Sylvester Stewart.
The Sacramento part is great because that's obviously, during high school, he's having some trouble at home and he goes up there for a year, and that's when he meets Cynthia Robinson and the kind of the pre-band starts to congeal. He says something kind of funny where he says, one thing I found working on books with other famous people is that everybody remembers famous people and famous people don't remember meeting anybody because they meet everybody. And with Sly, he said something about how you see who's going to stick. And so Cynthia was one of those early kind of meetings. He's still a kid. He's a teenager who he kind of had a sense, oh, well, this woman's going to stick. I'm going to see this person again. I mean, he didn't know for sure because he went up to Sacramento. As for the church, I think that it's very connected to music. Both of his parents played instruments. Obviously, they start as a kind of family church band and or singing group. There's instruments and there's singing. Mm-hmm. The second knottier, more tangled up question, which is, does faith of that nature prevent you from error or somehow armor you against error? I guess not. I mean, I guess that the humanity and the fallibility of humans.
That's right.
And also, is there a way in which, to some degree, he was kind of naive and sheltered? I mean, I again, these are my theories. This is one of the strange things. He obviously is older. His health is not great. He can't promote this book himself. So I go out as the co-writer. Some of it is my speculation. Some reflects what he told me. But when he went on the radio, he immediately designed a bunch of voices. He would do the radio, do the news, do the traffic in a different voice, do the weather. He was a master of accents and voices. When he announced the Sly Stone, he went on and they wanted him to be Sly Sloan. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I can't say that. You don't know how that sounds coming off my tongue. I'm going to fall down that phrase. So he invented Sly Stone. Sly was because his name was misspelled during a elementary school blackboard. A kid just wrote Sly instead of Syl as they were writing Sylvester. Mm-hmm. And so he creates all these personalities. Well, is that a guard against fame? Because when something happens, it happens to one of your personalities. And obviously, instead of to you, the heart of you, obviously, Sly Stone itself is a created personality. It's not Sylvester Stewart. It's the way that Robert Zimmerman makes Bob Dylan or whatever. And so you get this basket to catch all the things. Now, does that elevate you? Does that sink you? Does that drive you crazy? Does that put you out of yourself? I think it's a little bit of all of those things. And fame, he has to be a sensitive person because he's an artist. His antenna is up. He says one amazing thing that, this is to your point about Dr. King. He said something like, I'm paraphrasing, you couldn't have been alive in 1968 and not made an album like Stand in 1969, meaning your antenna are up.
Yes.
You're taking in everything.
Yes.
All the hope, all the disappointment, all the tragedy, all the violence, all the promise. And then this is what comes out of you. Well, you have to be able to take it in. When you're taking in that much, it runs the risk of wrecking you. And I think when you're a very sensitive person, and then let's just look at the practicality. You're touring 180 nights a year. You're supposed to be in two places at once. The weight of the world is suddenly on your shoulders, replacing this thing that was just kind of fun and triumphant becomes pressure. Yeah. So I don't know if I had a good answer for the church part of it, but I think he has a lot of a kind of faith, and family is a big part of that.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't know if you'd call it ungodly behavior, but there's certainly unkind to yourself behavior that runs throughout his life.
Well, none of us are human and divine. We're just human. And because we're human, we are subject to all the frailties that any other human faces. And that's why we are in the church, to try to help us to navigate the challenges and difficulties that come along with being a human being. We're talking with Ben Greenman about the new book, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir. We're talking about Sly Stone on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children.
Learn more at stjude.org.
Welcome to our Wednesday. It's October 18th. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Charges filed against an Austin, Texas police officer related to 2020 protests have been dropped. The Travis County District Attorney's Office announced charges of deadly conduct against Officer Roland Rast were dismissed. The officer was among more than a dozen law enforcement officers indicted last year for alleged misconduct during protests that followed the death of African-American George Floyd in Minneapolis. A Jackson State University student is dead following a shooting on the Mississippi campus over the weekend. Jalen Burns was shot and killed Sunday night at the University Point apartment complex. Cops say the 21-year-old victim, who is African-American, was fatally wounded while attempting to break up a fight. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Escape with the best stories of the year on Audible. Hear celebrity memoirs, mysteries, true crime, sci-fi, and more. Ignite your imagination with audiobooks, podcasts, and originals. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
From 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, Buffalo Wild Wings Happy Hour has beer, cocktails, and bar food from $3 to $6. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings for Happy Hour today. Valid at participating locations. Offers vary by location while supplies last. Dine in only. Taxes extra. Drink responsibly. Void where prohibited.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Dodgers Executive Vice President Andrew Friedman said manager Dave Roberts will return next year for his 9th season. Roberts, one of only 2 black managers in Major League Baseball, is under contract through 2025. There was concern about Roberts' future. The Dodgers failed 2 years in a row to reach the National League Championship Series after winning 100 games in the regular season. The Dodgers are also 3-10 in their last 13 postseason games. 5 NFL teams starting a black quarterback have a combined 20-8 record. That's 71%. At the top of the list is Kansas City's Patrick Mahomes and Philadelphia's Jalen Hurts. Both are 5-1. Dallas is 4-2 with Dak Prescott. Seattle is 3-2 with Geno Smith. Cleveland is also 3-2 with Deshaun Watson and P.J. Walker. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or whether anyone cares about them.
But the reality is, 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life. To learn more, go to covenanthouse.org today. Thank you for caring.
At Susan G. Komen, we believe that ending breast cancer needs all of us working together. Because if you've just been diagnosed and don't know where to turn, we've got you. If you can't afford the treatment you need, we've got you. And if you are driven to honor the loved one you've just lost, we have a place for you here. Because of you, we're supporting those who need help today while tirelessly searching for tomorrow's cures. Visit Komen.org and be a part of our Susan G. Komen community today.
The Green Foundation, key health influencer, empowering our Black communities through action. The Green Foundation advocates for affordable health care, accessibility, and knows the importance of culturally relatable health care. Regardless of income, we believe it is a right for optimum health. The Green Foundation has been at the forefront for 25 years, dedicated solely to promoting prevention through early detection, annual screenings, and nutrition. We know you because we are you. Our hand-holding approach supports you and your family to receive your right to be treated fairly and receiving quality healthcare services. We want you and your family to know COVID-19 was devastating to our families and to our wallet. We can build back better by understanding prevention, wearing your mask, washing your hands, social distancing, and understanding the impact of long COVID. Get the care you deserve. Take advantage of your privileges. Contact us, info@thegreenfoundation.net. info@thegreenfoundation.net.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Sun that loves you brown when the system tries to bring you down. Never had to shine a light. You don't need darkness to do what you think is right.
Our guest is Ben Greenman. He is the co-author of the book Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir about the life and legacy, of course, of Sly Stone, with afforded by Questlove. Delighted to have Ben Greenman on in this hour. You heard Ben say earlier, Sly is not in the best of health these days and unable to tour to promote the book himself. And so Ben Greenman gets the call to talk about the time he spent with Sly Stone writing this book and all the good stuff you'll find on the pages therein. There's no question. I want to talk now about the music, Ben, the music. There's no question that Sly is a true American original, and yet we all start out being copies until we find our own voice, until we find that thumbprint on our own throats. We end up copying somebody else. Talk to me about Sly's musical influences. We know all the folk who he influenced years later. But before he becomes an original, who's he copying?
I mean, he would say Ray Charles was the sort of most important voice, and maybe the tone and the fact that he could move to any genre. He could do country and western, he could do pop, he could do blues, he could do R&B, whatever was around. He kind of brought Ray Charles-ness to it. There's a lot of other people. Because of that period in the circuit of church singers moving out into secular music, Sam Cooke's the most famous. He would see some of these people when they came through as gospel performers, and then later understand how they became pop stars. Jackie Wilson gets a shout out just for the incredible stage presence that he had. Being able to just dominate when you get up on the stage. It's that era of soul singers right on the edge of rock and roll. I think as he got older, a little bit older when he's a DJ, it's straight up the middle 60s influences. It's the Beatles and it's Dylan and it's the Stones, because when he was a DJ, he would play white rock acts on the radio, and he was breaking format. And sometimes people didn't like that, and he would say, no, you don't understand. This is music. You're seeing in this one case how a guy with a guitar is delivering powerful messages. You're seeing in another case perfect choreography between four people. I need to learn all this because he was a producer and they'd have to imitate, let's get a Beatles-like track. B, I want to do this. Right. And so when it came time for him to create this band, and something you were saying before made me think of this. It's a bigger idea, and it's not one that he addresses directly, but this is the second sight idea in Double Consciousness, where you get to go outside and look back in and see how things have been and how there can be change.
Yes.
How you can sort of make a new thing by seeing through what was there.
Yeah.
And this is all over. This is in every song. Don't let the system bring you down. Be yourself. And so the band that he creates breaks a lot of these bonds and formulas and creates a new formula. It's men and women. It's black and white. People say funk. Sure, it is a funk band, but it's a rock and roll band. Really. I mean, in a lot of ways. It's not. If you draw a line for funk music from James Brown through to, let's say, George Clinton through to Prince, Sly's definitely there. He's maybe the most important figure. But as Prince realized, there's a bunch of rock and roll as well. And, like you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. No, and I didn't mean to cut you off. And I get the sense that was always a goal of his. To the story you told earlier about his breaking format on a black station and playing rock music, my sense is that his goal was to always be fluid in rock, funk, and R&B.
Yeah, and I think that there might not have been, or just at that time, you're starting to call things funk because you have James Brown, using it in a bunch of song titles, and you have Dyke and the Blazers using it. But he's inventing. If you hear an album like Stand, and most of the hits we've been playing are from the first half, which is really interesting because we can talk about how radically it changes. I mean, it's like downshifting a car at some point, I think because partly of the fame. But those first hits are aggressively reaching everyone. So you get to the point where in the summer of '69, you have the Harlem Cultural Festival and Woodstock. Huge audiences in both places, different audiences in both places, and he's just as powerful in both places because he's mainlining right into the brains of young people.
There's a great quote from James Parker of The Atlantic about this book, and I want to read it right quick because it's just funny to me, and get you to respond to it because I know there's a lot of truth in it. I was thinking the same thing before I even got the book. I said, how did Ben Greenman get Sly to sit for this book? And so James Parker says that Ben Greenman has coaxed, wheedled, massaged, used God knows what processes of titration and palpation to extract a fascinating book from Sly Stone. Great quote from James Parker of The Atlantic, one of the blurbs on the book, which leads me to ask very quickly and very directly, how did you, over time, get Sly to give you such great stories for a book? Because we all know the challenges that Sly has. What would you say about that process, Ben Greenman?
I think Arlene was so key in this. And when we started, so we finally greenlight ourselves at the end of 2019, and then COVID hits right away at the beginning of 2020. That I thought would put a stake. I thought that would drive a stake through the heart of this and kill it off. As it turned out, I was 100% wrong, and it helped a huge amount because it put Sly in one place. Arlene didn't have to go to her office, and she could go there every day. His health and his lung issues meant he could take very few visitors because there was a lot of fear around COVID. So that first 6 months, I had heard all the stories, and I knew people who had these experiences where he was difficult, didn't want to answer, pulled back. There's one thing where he would say, I think it's in the book, where he'd say to an interviewer, "Is this a battle of wits?" And that's his opening gambit. So the interviewer's like, I don't know what's going on here. I just want to find out what your new album is, man. It's 1973. You got a new record. My magazine sent me. Why are we fighting? But he didn't, he wasn't up for it. So I think the two things that I said is that George Clinton sponsored me in.
Sure.
I came with a George pass, and that meant a great deal of trust to Sly. I mean, I've been through the George process, and George is maybe the person who, in some ways, reflects Sly's achievement. A little later. Started around the same time, but by the time George becomes the mature George, it's later.
Yeah.
He picks up on what Sly's doing, 4 or 5 years behind him, even though he was doing doo-wop earlier. And so that's huge, just for George to say,
sure,
this guy's not going to twist you in any direction. He's going to listen to you. And then I came in prepared. I came in with an outline. I think one thing that's always fascinating about any of these books, I've done books with Brian Wilson. I've done George's book, obviously. I've done books with other stars.
Van Zandt,
Van Zandt. Van Zandt's a little different because Van Zandt's really like a writer. I got hundreds of pages from him, and so I was more his editor. But a similar thing. What happens is that you're trying to unlock memory,
Right.
You're like the super, and you're coming to the apartment, and you don't know which of those. You're the new super, let's say. You don't know which of the keys work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found with him, place was better than time initially. So one thing I'll say is that
hold that thought. I got to do this. Place is better than time when it comes to Sly Stone. What does that mean? Place better than time. And we're going to talk also. We got some people asking questions, a lot of questions here about why Sly didn't do more collaborations. Well, he did it pretty well on his own, but didn't do a lot of collabs. We'll talk about that and more with Ben Greenman. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Is your eyesight changing?
I can't read this anymore.
Don't lose hope. People just like you are working every day using Braille, screen magnification, speech technology, and other tools and blindness skills. Your eyesight may have changed, but your goals, they don't have to. We can help. Visit us on the web at blind.org. The National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Who do you trust to get at the truth?
Tavis Smiley.
That's who. The conversation continues right now.
I'm Tavis Smiley. He's Ben Greenman. He's the co-author of Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a memoir about the life and legacy of one Sly Stone. Ben, my time's getting tight. Let me ask you a few things right quick here. One, this comes from one of our listeners. Collaborations. Not that he had to, but even Prince and others did collabs. Sly, not so much. What do you think about that or know about that?
During the time that the band existed, he had a band. And I think we haven't actually said enough about the Family Stone. He would not have been him without them.
Sure.
That's a fantastic band. A lot is from his family, obviously, siblings, and then the musicians that he brought in, whether it's Jerry or Greg or Larry or Cynthia. And so he did collaborate. He just had his own band.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but to that question, when he lost that band, when they split up in 75, there is a kind of lost in the wilderness moment. And he does collaborate a little bit. I mean, through the 80s, when I was a teenager, I was obsessed, and I was looking for every collab. So there'd be a track with the Bar-Kays, just like a teeter-totter, a track with Earth, Wind & Fire, Good Times. He had a hit with Jesse Johnson, Crazy. And then, so there were moments where people tried to kind of put him back up. And a lot of them were his songs, and some he was guests. He did a good duet with Martha Davis from the Motels on the Joan Armatrading song on the Soul Man soundtrack. So he was. They were trying to pair him with people. A lot of it was that when at the time he would have been doing that, he was not in the best shape and mindset. I think he was great to work with. He has a funny quote where he says he wished the hip hop guys would have called him because he would have made their music better, and if he didn't, they didn't have to pay him.
When the band breaks up in 75, is there a singular reason why it breaks up, or are there multiple reasons why the band breaks up?
It's multiple. I mean, Larry's departure, which is the one that I had always heard stories about, which he denied, or he at least said that's not how he remembered it. Larry goes earlier. The rest of the band soldiers on. And I think it's a bunch of things. I think tastes were changing. They weren't drawing the same. His songwriting may not have been inspired in the same way. You know, back then, music changed so quickly. You could wait a year, and then you're gone. It's a different kind of music and different stars. And when he does this record, Heard You Miss Me While I'm Back in 76, it's funny to think about that he was apologizing for being away, quote, away, and we're talking about like a year. Now we're 50 years past that. So time was different then, I think.
Sly wasn't just a band leader. He was a songwriter. And when we come forward in our remaining moments with Ben Greenman, I want to get Ben's take on Sly Stone as a songwriter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
This season, your coffee orders are getting warmer, and your outfits are getting cozier. The world keeps changing, and so does COVID-19. That's why this season's COVID-19 shots have been updated. They're one of the best ways to help protect yourself against COVID-19. You can get a COVID-19 shot at the same visit as a flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Talk to your healthcare provider to learn more and schedule at vaccines.gov. And don't forget to get extra cinnamon spice. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Ben Greenman, assess Sly Stone as a songwriter.
Well, he's one of the best. I mean, this song that we're hearing, Everyday People, is just such a brilliantly simple song. He starts out super complex because he's a composer, and the first record kind of falls flat, and then he does Dance to the Music to show that he could be brilliantly simple. It's not a song I don't think that he has tremendous affection for, but it creates this new formula, and then he just is so good at slogans. Different strokes for different folks is in this song. Babies Making Babies is later. In some ways we haven't talked as much about the later half of his songwriting, but he goes deep inside himself, starting with There's a Riot Going On, and that's equally fascinating. He's not looking outward into society as much as looking inward, and just as brilliant there. Yeah. It's great because there's, I have two hats, a collaborator and then a fan.
Sure.
I actually have two hats you can't see, but I just switched them to be the fan for a second.
I'll let you stay in that frame, in that hat for a moment here. You've got 2 minutes left in conversation. What would you say ultimately about the influence of Sly Stone?
Oh, man. I mean, you as a fan, again, there's a period where this kind of formula starts going everywhere on the radio. It goes to the Jackson 5. Norman Whitfield's For the Temptations, here's this kind of psychedelic funk. And so there's a year where everything sounds like Sly, and then Sly changes. But as you go through it, obviously, Michael Jackson, Prince, a lot of hip-hop, because he's one of the, for a time, the most important sampled artists. What we talked about at the very beginning, fashion and style, being yourself, and having the courage to be yourself, that unlocks everything. I mean, there's bedroom pop artists who swear by There's a Riot Going On. They're not working in funk or soul music at all. But their point is, I want you to hear me close to the mic and what I'm thinking, what I'm experiencing. And so that comes from him as well, a lot of that. So, yeah, there's no end to the influence, and I hope we're going to be hearing the influence for 100 more years.
We got 60 seconds here. I want to close on a personal note, if I might. What is the best thing, the enduring thing, the thing that you will always hold on to about all the time you spent with Sly Stone, being able to put together this memoir?
I learned that when he would remember things, this is sort of trivial, but he had what I call the punchline pause. Sometimes we'd be talking about a story, and I'd ask a question, and he would pause, and I would think, because of his health, because of his, you're recovering things from 50 years ago, is he not remembering? Is he having a hard time getting there? And every time he would deliver this sort of perfect capper, 1 word, 2 words, 3 words. And I saw that there's still all of those things that were there, the entertainer, the thinker, the compressor, the distiller, everything's still there. So I came to really look forward to those punchline pauses.
Thank you for Let Me Be Myself Again, a memoir, Sly Stone with Ben Greenman, with a foreword by Questlove. It's a great read, a lot of great stuff in here, great photos in the book. You will not be disappointed when you pick up this memoir of one Sly Stone. We thank Ben Greenman for his work and effort to make this thing happen. Ben, thanks for this conversation, man. Congrats on the book. What a great delight to have had you on this program today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Sly.
All right. Thank you to Sly as well from all of us at Tavis Smiley and beyond. That's our program for today. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Welcome to our Wednesday. It's October 18th. I'm Mike Moore.